Donald Trump is once again president of the United States, and I've been asked if I'm going to move back to the United States now that Trump is going to solve everything, and I've been told I bet I regret leaving the United States because Trump is going to solve everything. I've been clear. I am not returning to the United States, whether it's Trump's America or anyone else's, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to go through a couple of reasons why I won't return to the United States just because Trump won. Suffice it to say, they can be summed up as I'm politically homeless, I don't fit into one camp, and I think that the United States very much pushes people to be in one camp or the other, lockstep. If you don't agree with everything, you're wrong. And like so many other people who have nuanced opinions, whenever I've spoken out against something that the right wing does, I'm a communist. And whenever I speak out against something that the left wing does, I'm a fascist. That's not a place I want to return to. But let's talk about the one that you hear us talk about at Nomad Capitalist, taxes. Nomad Capitalist helps 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs legally reduce their taxes by moving overseas. You move yourself, you move your company, maybe you set up a trust offshore. If you do those things, you can reduce your taxes. Even as Americans have what's called citizenship-based taxation, you can still get your taxes, if not to zero in some cases. We get a lot of people down into the mid to upper single digits on their businesses. Are you going to get those tax rates in the United States? The simple answer is no. If you got those tax rates in the US, if somehow, yes, on a Republican Congress, if somehow they all said, hey, let's make the tax rate 9%, I think that would have longer term implications for the country, and it would only be a matter of time before things blew up. The United States spends way too much money to have a 9% tax rate. This is like basic personal finance, right? You can cut your income. You got to cut your expenses. And what I see traveling all around the world is you're not going to attract enough businesses to drop whatever they're doing and come to the United States, no matter how low the tax rate is. We're seeing more people than ever that are happy to be in their country and run their business. So all the small businesses that 20 years ago might have come to the land of opportunity US, we see more people than ever. We hear from more people directly than ever saying, hey, I'm happy here. We have tax incentives here. We have lower tax rates. I don't have to deal with the high costs and people are at each other's throats. So even if the tax rates were 9%, you wouldn't see a lot of people come back. If the tax rates were 0%, you wouldn't see me come back. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the bottom line about taxes is this is an issue of people, their guy got in power, and now they feel good. So now everything must be solved in their minds. The reality is Donald Trump last time lowered your personal tax rate from 39.6% all the way down to 37%. He said they were going to simplify the number of tax brackets, and if I remember correctly, there ended up being more tax brackets. So the reality is, if you're someone who is a Nomad Capitalist client, your personal tax rate is still high. Yeah, a lot of people moved, especially during the pandemic, to states like Florida and Tennessee and Texas, which have no state income tax. By the way, sidebar, I thought we weren't supposed to abandon the people where we're from, right? When I moved to another country, I'm a nasty guy. But when you abandon the people that you grew up with to move to Florida to save on state tax, that's okay. I don't really get that. But anyway, even if you reduce the state tax, you're still paying 37. Does he lower that a bit? Sure. George W. Bush, all those years ago, got it down to 35. I don't know how much lower you can go. Now, are they going to lower corporate tax rates? Maybe. One thing that will be interesting with Trump is to see does he throw something into the wheel of this global minimum tax, which doesn't affect anyone watching this in all likelihood. If you're making $750 million a year or more in revenue, that impacts you. For the rest of us, it doesn't, at least yet. Will Trump throw something in to screw with that, particularly if the U.S. lowers its corporate tax rate? Here's the reality. Most small businesses, if you own your entire business, you're not going to be structured to pay that corporate tax rate, because then you take it a dividend, or you pay yourself somehow, you're going to pay tax again. So it's not just 15% and you're done. We help clients move to places, 15% is probably on the high end. We do have clients, they're not as concerned about taxes. They want good quality of life, they're happy to pay something. Not most clients who come to us these days don't want to, don't care about, and don't end up paying zero. They just want to pay a lot less. But when we take someone somewhere, it might be 10%, or 12 or 15%, but then you're done. Your dividends, for example, are tax-free. Take all the money you want out of your foreign company living in a different country. And that's why you want to have the different where you live, your company, somewhere else. You want to have your life be diversified. But in the United States, yes, your taxes perhaps will go down. I found it interesting that the SALT, the state and local tax deductions, Trump capped those. And you could make a case in the first term, why should someone in Oklahoma pay for a guy in California or New York who chooses to live in a high tax state and pays those high local property, city and state taxes? I can see that point. Now they're saying they're going to undo that. Kind of makes me wonder just, what they're going to do. Your taxes are never going to be as low as moving overseas, not by even close. But here's the point. Guys like Alex Hormozi have talked about me and what we do and said, hey, I'm willing to pay something to live in the U.S. And I respect that. I'm not willing to pay something to live in the U.S. So for me, and I've talked about this at length, you heard me not so long ago talk about the real reason I gave up U.S. citizenship. Hint, it's not really taxes, it's the culture, it's the mindset of the country and the collective nature of that. If you said 0% tax in the U.S., I wouldn't move back because I'm the opposite of Alex Hormozi. I actively do not want to live in the United States. And to everyone who thinks, well, he's just a traitor who left because of taxes. No, I don't feel American. I never did since I was a teenager. When my tax bill was probably a couple $100s a year from my first summer job at 15. I don't think working at an ice cream parlor in Bay Village, Ohio, my taxes were very high back then. But yet I didn't feel like this was the place for me. And so that's my particular story. But understand, no matter how well Trump does, you will pay lower taxes living overseas in any number of probably dozens of countries than you will staying in the U.S. So it may feel good to have a guy come in who agrees with you and talks about lowering taxes. When I look at the taxes that they want to lower, primarily on the corporate side, they want to take it off of things like Social Security. Does that benefit you, the 7 and the 8-figure entrepreneur? I don't know that Trump's going to do this, but others in the Republican Party, and maybe they'll push him, they want to do things like means testing your Social Security. Does that really affect you in the scheme of things? Is that going to be to make you move? No. But if Warren Buffett paid into Social Security, he should get it because they've been lying to you all these years. Oh, it's not a tax, it's a benefit. Well, if they take your money and don't pay you, that's not a benefit. They lied. And I think you'll see some of that. So not only the tax is going to be high, but you're going to see more of these things where they're going to lie to you about the taxes they've taken from you all these years. Why? Because they're $36 trillion in debt. As to investments, people are saying, well, Andrew, don't you want to invest now that the country's going crazy? Yeah, I said, and I made a video for you right after Trump won. And you know what I said? I said I'm relieved that I can stop talking about politics now. And if you like Trump, and if you want to live in the U.S., I respect your decision and go. If the only reason you ever followed Nomad Capitalist was because you just didn't like Biden, you don't get what we're talking about here. Happy to have you watch, but you don't really understand what we do here. It's go where you're treated best. No one politician changes it. Trump's not going to save the country. What he did do was spike the stock market in the days after I made that message for you. And I made some money. Now, with the market's perception that Trump's going to screw with interest rates, directly or indirectly, some of the stuff I have, like REITs, didn't do as well, so I took the opportunity to buy some more of those. But yeah, U.S. stocks across pretty much every sector did very well when Trump was in. I don't live in the U.S. I am not a U.S. citizen. I'm allowed to invest in U.S. stocks, and I can participate just as well as you can. In fact, if some basic structuring is done properly, I don't pay capital gains tax on those U.S. stocks. Now, I may pay a little bit higher rate of dividend tax on those stocks because of how I structure those. I could choose to pay a low rate of dividend tax. I choose to pay a little bit more because I value estate tax protection. But bottom line, I will have a lower tax rate on my capital gains in U.S. investments than you will if I'm buying equities. I don't think Trump is going to totally eliminate capital gains tax, whether it's on equities, whether it's on Bitcoin, whether it's on any of it. Again, probably won't raise the capital. I don't think he'll raise the capital gains tax, but I can already make the investments. I'm able to buy any U.S. stock. There are a couple that would be disadvantageous for me to buy. That's a very small number, a very specific reason. If I want to buy ETFs, if I want to buy NVIDIA, if I want to buy Ford, if I want to buy Berkshire Hathaway, I can do that. And sure, I might do more of that. I'll come back to in a minute why I don't entirely want all my eggs in one basket. But not living in the U.S., not being American, doesn't mean I can't invest in stuff in the U.S. The U.S. is actually pretty flexible towards that. And I think that no matter how America first you are, you're going to realize people are not going to want to invest as much in the US if you make it harder for them. That's why the US makes it relatively easy to invest. Now, I don't want all my eggs in one basket. I don't want all my assets denominated in US dollars. I actually think right now there's an opportunity to get currencies that may be impacted by a strong dollar that I think have long-term positive fundamentals. You can buy those at a bit of a discount. So when Trump got elected, the peso got beat up a little bit, not as bad as some people thought. Yeah, I was there ready to buy some pesos. I did buy some euros because I do things in those countries, investments and otherwise. So there's an opportunity there for me on a long-term investment basis. But really, I think, the third reason is an energy and a buzz that I think people get carried away with. There were people who called us when Biden got inaugurated. We didn't get a big spike of leads when Biden won the election because people thought, oh, this isn't real. But then when he got inaugurated, holy cow, Biden's the president, we're screwed. Yeah, there was some policies I wouldn't agree with. And I'm sure if you're living in the US, there were more policies that you didn't agree with or suffered under. I is not living in the US. What happens in the US doesn't affect me as much as it affects you. That's why I think maybe you want to have at least a plan B so that when bad politics in the US affects you, you've got a place where you can go and not have it affect you. But what I also realized is some of those same people who didn't follow through because they ultimately realized, hey, the country's going to go on, life's going to go on, I don't like the politics, maybe I'm suffering in some way. Now they're going the other way. Oh, Trump's in charge? Everything's fixed. And we saw that. We saw a lot of that when Trump got in. Again, what do I say? I'm not lockstep with Trump, more so because I just don't care and because I am politically homeless and I don't take sides and it's not my country and it's like, all right, you guys do whatever you want to do. That's not good enough. You either love Trump or you're a terrorist. Guys, he doesn't walk on water. He's not going to fix everything. Part of that is just Washington's a screwed up place. It does not turn on a dime. Let's see what he does. But you know what? He had 4 years before. Some of our clients, he raised their taxes. So this idea that it's all good and nothing bad will ever happen, that's not true of any politician. It's not anti-Trump. It's not TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. It's acknowledging that the US government is a machine, and I think that just the buzz is off. Now, do I want to be around that buzz? No, because here's the thing. Nothing really changed in this sense. The people who have the opinions you don't agree with, let's just take people, what do people complain about in recent years? The wokeism. Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff went too far. Again, it doesn't bother me to where I get angry about it. Why? Because almost nowhere that I spend time has that. So I don't see it. Therefore, it's like, oh, okay, that's a problem over there. The same way you think about people's problems in other countries. You don't worry yourself too much. You don't get angry about what happens in other countries. I don't have that where I live. Again, maybe a reason you at least want to have a plan B that like, hey, if this whole Trump thing doesn't work out, we got an anti-woke place to go. But this idea that those people you don't agree with just went away because now you're in charge, they're still going to be there. They're still going to be in charge of certain things. They're still going to have an impact. They're still going to bother you. For me, I want to live in a place where I just agree with the values, whether my party's in power or not, because politics is fleeting. And so this whole energy now, I guess I come from a very American Midwestern background where I support the underdog. And I've supported folks who felt like they weren't being heard for a while. But when those same folks wanted to tear and started insulting even me and saying, because I'm not lockstep with Trump, I'm going to be annihilated. I said, yeah, you're not the underdog anymore. Hard for me to be on your side. Now, doesn't mean I'm going to go and support all the people who I didn't agree with in the first place. Am I going to go and dye my hair purple? No. But why do I live in a place with that kind of energy, right? By the way, my choice, I live in cities. I walk some places. That's the life that I want. I don't know what city I can live in the United States that has that. Oh, we'll just move to a distant suburb. You'll be an hour away. If you like that, I appreciate that. We have plenty of clients that live in suburbs and exurbs and rural areas, and we help them find that where they move. But that's not personally what I want. What city am I going to go to? Miami, I guess. Kind of the Dubai of the US. I'm not sure that entirely speaks to what I'm looking for. What city can I go to? where I can, have the vibe that I want. I just think there's an energy in the US where it's like, my guy won, I'm happy. My guy lost, I'm miserable. One of the things that we're going to talk about in Live Like a King Oman, we went on a location in Oman. We show luxury living in that country in the Middle East. Some of the kindest people. Everyone's chill. I don't think it's the kind of place you'd worry too much about this kind of stuff. Everyone's happy with the government there. It's a monarchy, like functions. They're all better off than they were before. Yeah, that kind of appeals to me, just on a soul level more than having to live in this cantankerous and contentious environment where the seas are always changing. I just don't want it. Just don't want it. And on top of that, fourth reason is a social reason. I've been very clear. Never was a place where I felt like I fit in. If you're just chasing tax rates, understand there are plenty of places to go with low taxes and no taxes. So I'm not just chasing tax rates. I'm chasing a sense of peace. I'm chasing a sense of belonging. I would like to be happy in life. I'd like to have options. I would not like to be branded as an American and therefore I have fewer opportunities to invest or to own a business or to go to certain places. I think that's going to get worse, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, I want to be around people who are like me and who share my interests. And there's a reason people come to Nomad Capitalist Live, that I don't believe Trump will change. No one would change it. Everyone in your life, for the most part, is still going to say, why do you need a second passport? Why do you not like giving half your money? Or maybe now it's 40% of your money under Trump to the government. Why do you like having options? Why do you not want to put all your eggs in one basket? Why don't you just stay here? Things are great here in Minnesota. Why do you want options? People come to Nomad Capitalist Live. It's our 4-day event. Why? Because very few people around them think the way they do. I don't think any politician really is ever going to talk about the sense of freedom that we talk about here. It's all about they have certain freedoms they approve of and certain freedoms they don't approve of. What we talk about is the ultimate freedom. And that includes giving people that you don't agree with the freedom to do what they want. That's never going to be a political thing, but it is a thing when you live my life and you float above some of the cultures and you have a greater sense of belonging. That can be your life. And I don't want to go and hang out with the average American. I like the Americans who come to Nomad Capitalist Live. I like the Americans who are our clients because we agree by definition. They're here for a reason. The average person in the US doesn't know where Oman is. I like to be in places where we have conversations and they know the whole geopolitics of Oman as being one of the most neutral countries in the world. And they've been there and they know something about it. And that's not to judge anyone else. That's just what I want. So why would I return to that? I left for a reason, and it wasn't just taxes, as I've told you. But lastly, it'll be interesting to see how things play out. What I think Trump is correct on is these sanctions aren't working. We've told you how sanctions from the US on other countries and other entities are up fourfold since the turn of the century. Now, you can say he has an opinion for whatever reason. Maybe he'll do something about it, maybe he won't. But I think that as the global south, as they call it, becomes more developed, I want a chance to sell into those countries. I want a chance to invest in those countries. I want a chance to be a part of the places. Some of them I already live. I live in Malaysia. I've thought for years Malaysia should be allowed to succeed. And I fundamentally disagree with the fact that just because you do live in Minnesota, you have this inherent right to make money and everyone else in the world should just shut up and suffer so that you can make more money. And I think there is some of that in the US. But I think that the Malaysias and the Colombias and the Mexicos and the Brazils and the various countries around Africa, I think they are more empowered than ever. And there's a block of places you can make money. And that's what Nomad Capitalist has done. I've told you that for years. There was a time when probably 60% of our clientele was Americans and almost all of it was from 5 Western countries. It's not the case anymore. And I think being in the United States not only would take away opportunities for me to see what's happening in the world the way I live now, but being branded as a US resident or US citizen would take away opportunities. Because I think just as crypto investors were calling us during the last bull run and saying, I'm not allowed as an American to invest in this, can I get a second passport? There are mutual funds and certain investments you can't make as an American. A lot of the banks around the world don't want you to be American. I would be forced to put a lot more of my money back in a country that I fundamentally find distrustworthy. I think the US has been very heavy-handed in their position in the world. And even if I like the country, and even if I like the president, I don't think that culturally changes. Maybe some of the sanctions will ease up. That doesn't really impact me, other than I, as an American, I have fewer opportunities. I just think that keeping your eggs in the basket of the United States somewhat by choice and somewhat because these other countries that haven't been treated fairly by the US are going to start pushing back and you're going to have fewer opportunities. I just don't think it's a good reason. And lastly, I get a better financial deal living outside of the US that will never be matched no matter what any politician does. So if you want true tax reduction, if you want true freedom in every sense of the word, that's when you go where you're treated best. That's when you go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn how to work with us, learn about what the options are. There are countries out there like Oman you may have never considered, never thought about, never understood how they work. Oh my God, that could be exactly what you need for this part of your life. And I'm not saying you have to leave the United States, but I am saying Trump will be in office for 4 years, whether you like that or not. If you like it, well, 4 years from now, it's all up for grabs again. Better years too early than a day too late to be prepared. And if you don't like it, well, then have a plan now, but don't do it because you are stressed or because you're panicked or because you're just angry. Do it because you want fundamentally more money, more freedom, and a better life.
This is Oman, and today we're showing you luxury living in its beautiful capital city of Muscat. Now we're going to show you one of the sexiest luxury villas here in Oman.
We're going to show you how to live like a king